right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of the great millstone who rule well, and salutations to my Rabbi a lot. That's to say, 144,000 of the nation of Israel. All right, sincerely pushing the word of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai in faith and in truth. All right, and getting into this lesson. I'm going to be reading here from the book of First Esdras in the Apocrypha. And I'm going to start at verse 10. All right. The first book of First Esdras, starting at verse 10. And when you start up, this is going into Josiah, who was king of Israel at the time, king of, the southern kingdom at this particular time. And, he was officiating, him and, the Levitical priests officiating the Passover. All right. And, when you read the account, there was no Passover held like this for quite some time. All right. So there's a important point I wanted to prove that, something that stuck out to me. And by the way, I'm reading this in the GNT. All right. So reading it in the GNT, I came across something and, it pretty much reminded me of the importance of the King James Version. Okay. These other versions are good, but, they go off a lot, but that's why it's important to have that foundation in the King James, and even with our foundation being in the King James Version, we still go into the etymology of certain words, all right, to give us a greater understanding, a deeper understanding. We go into the etymology of certain words in the Hebrew as well as the Greek. All right, so reading this in the GNT, starting at verse 10, First Esdras 1 and 10, it says, "Here's what happened. The priests and the Levites, dressed in proper manner and carrying the unleavened bread, came that morning to present the offerings to the Lord according to the instructions in the law of Moses. They took their positions in front of the people in order of tribal and family divisions." Verse 12, it says, "The Levites roasted the Passover sacrifices and then boiled them in pots and kettles, making a pleasant smell. Then they distributed the meat to all the people. After that was done, they took meat for themselves and for the priests, the descendants of Aaron." Now, being that, brothers have partook in Passovers, year after year. All right, when you read the account, which we'll get, we ain't supposed to boil the Passover, the actual lamb or goat that is being roasted or used for the service, the Passover service. You're not supposed to boil it. Now, for someone who has never really read the KJV, from start to finish, so to say, or read the actual account that we'll get in Leviticus. Exodus. If someone has never, read it in the KJV, the account of the Passover, and they just read, come across this here in the GNT, in First Esdras, they might think that it's cool to actually boil the Passover. All right, which that's going off. You ain't supposed to. So once again, verse 12, it says, "The Levites roasted the Passover sacrifices and then boiled them in pots." So when reading this verbatim, you would think that, the Passover sacrifice was roasted, and then after it got roasted, they boiled it in pots. That same sacrifice they boiled in pots, in kettles, and making a pleasant smell. All right, which that is that's off. Okay, you ain't supposed to do that. Now, let me grab this in the KJV, First Ezra 1 and started at 10. It says, "And when these things were done, the priests and Levites, having the unleavened bread, stood in very comely order, according to the kindreds and according to the several dignities of the fathers before the people, to offer the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And thus did they in the morning." Verse 12. "And they roasted the Passover with fire, as appertaineth." Okay. "As for the sacrifices," all right, something different. All right. "They saw them in brass pots and pans with a good savor." Okay, so the Passover, they roasted that with fire, as appertaineth. Okay, as is as pertaining to the law. Okay, as pertaining to uh, Exodus 12. But as for the sacrifices, something completely different. Okay, as for the sacrifices, they sawed them or boiled them in brass pots and pans with a good savor. All right. So here in the KJV, when you read it, you get the clear understanding that it's the Passover was roasted, but the sacrifices, okay, which was something totally different. That's what was pretty much boiled in brass pots. But when you read that here in the GNT, verse 12, it says the Levites roasted the Passover sacrifices. It's continuous. So you would think that it's literally talking about the literal, the lamb or goat was roasted, but then after that they boiled it. That's the understanding you get when you read it verbatim here in GNT. Okay, which, someone who's never really dug into the KJV would think that was cool. Okay, which is not. All right, that's why we use these other other versions for edification purposes, but being built up in the KJV, we know when it's going off. Okay, so this is the actual account of the Passover in Exodus 12. I'll read this and then I'll wrap it up. So this is Exodus 12:1. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto him, unto his house, take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the house, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread. Okay, so the Passover lamb is roasted with fire and is ate. Okay, the flesh is ate that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Okay, eat not, listen, verse 9, eat not of it raw, nor sodden, okay, at all with water. It's not to be boiled, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. Okay, And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. Okay? And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh's Passover. Okay? So the point being, the Passover lamb or goat, whatever, you choose to to sacrifice. You are supposed to eat it, unleavened, unleavened bread, and not sodden with water, not boiled with water. All right. So let me read that verse 9 in the NLT. It says, "Do not eat any of the meat raw or boiled in water. The whole animal, including the head, legs, and internal organs, must be roasted over a fire." All right, and that's simple and plain to the point. Now, these people whoever was in charge of actually writing or translating or whatever you want to consider it, this GNT should have known to pretty much make it a definite difference between the Passover lamb that's being roasted versus these sacrifices. Okay, that's boiled in pots, just for the truth's sake and edification of the reader. But that's something that stood out to me as I was reading this. And you gotta thank Yahweh Shemel Shah that brothers, we actually came up in a time when the KJV was all we was reading. So now when we read these other versions of the scriptures, we know when they're going off, because of the the history and the time we've applied to actually reading the KJV, all right, which is the closest we have to the Hebrew and the Greek, the Old and the New Testament. All right, so that's something real quick, man. That was on my spirit. Lord willing, this has been edifying. So next time I say shalom.